Good evening, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Dog Tag Diva podcast. I'm your host, Dog Tag Diva, and with me tonight is my fellow military broadcast radio host with the mostest, Amber Dietz. And Amber's podcast is called Into the Weeds.
Yeah.
And tonight we are going to be talking about a really interesting case that is still in the public mainstream of discussion, if you will. We're going to be talking about Gypsy Rose Blanchard this evening and her case and some inside scoop that you may not be aware of and kind of things that are surrounding this really interesting case from multiple perspectives. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for coming on. I'm always open to new and interesting things and being objective and hearing all sides of the story so that people can form their own opinions.
Yeah.
But this case came to light about 10 years ago, and then it kind of came back into the mainstream as she was doing interviews from prison and then getting out of prison. And now she's out of prison and she's had a very tumultuous, if you will, to put it lightly, time since she's got out of prison. But there's a lot of undertones of this story that I'm really interested in talking about with you tonight.
Okay. Well, I'm here. Ask away. I don't know what you know about the case. So why don't we start with that? What do you know about it?
So I can remember this story in the news. Probably I think it's 10 years ago now. It was about 2015. This case came out. And that the mom, Dee Dee Blanchard, had been murdered by her daughter and the boyfriend, and that Gypsy, the daughter, had spent years thinking that she was quite ill and had all these medical issues from seizures and cancer and etc. There was a long list of medical issues that she had. And they started out in Louisiana, if I'm remembering correctly. Yes. And then mom and dad got divorced, and Dee Dee took Gypsy to Missouri, and there was, donations involved. And who gave her the house? Was it Habitat for Humanity that gave her the house? Yeah. So there was a house and wheelchair bound and surgeries and all kinds of things that come along with, having a child with, multiple chronic illnesses and, trips and clothes and toys and, things that, when you pull at someone's heartstrings, people want to help. And one of the things that came out at the end of this, upon the murder of Dee Dee Blanchard, was that Dee Dee had actually lied about all the ailments that Gypsy had, and she wasn't ill. And so it's, and then, kind of came out that, Gypsy was involved with the murder of her mom, with the boyfriend that she had met online. And Gypsy wound up going to prison herself for the murder, in addition to the then boyfriend, who also went to prison. He is serving a life sentence. And she was sentenced to 10, but I don't believe she did the full 10.
No, 8.5.
Okay. And then she was released from prison in December of 2023. Whilst she was in prison, she got married and got, released from prison. Husband picks her up, and then they have this tumultuous continuation of their marriage outside of prison. And then she reconnects with an old boyfriend that she had dated while she was in prison, which I don't know how you can consider somebody your boyfriend when you're in prison and you date, but you don't really date like that. I think we could do a whole nother show on women who date men in prison.
Pen pal romances in prison. Yeah.
Like the Menendez brothers are married. Like,
yeah.
Wait. A show for another time. But so she gets married in prison to this one individual, and she reconnects with an old boyfriend. She leaves the husband. There's this divorce, and then she's pregnant with the new boyfriend. But there's some weird law in Louisiana that whatever your name is at that time, even if you're divorced, the baby's still going to have that name. So it's a whole thing.
Yes. Okay, well, that was a great rundown. So, first of all, I would say, so today is actually Nicholas Godejohn, her co-defendant's birthday, his 36th birthday. Um, and I would like everybody to remember that Nicholas is on the spectrum and has autism. And for 2.5 years, he was manipulated, and he tried very hard to get her not to go along with this plan. And there's a lot of evidence out there showing that he tried to get her to change her mind several times. But also, Gypsy is sick. She has a chromosome deletion disorder or something like that. And it affects a lot of your body. It has given her microcephaly, which is like a small head.
Yes.
Um, and all kinds of things come along with this medical disorder. And you're a nurse, so do you know anything about that?
Not her particular medical, like her chromosomal deletion, but I can say with some semblance of certainty that, when chromosomes get, messed up for whatever reason, either because we're exposed to something or because we're born with it and it's, a birth defect, it depends on which chromosome has the issue. And then there may or may not be small or big medical issues that will come along with that deletion. And there are so many syndromes out there. I mean, I've been a pediatric nurse, most of my 28-year career as a nurse, and there are some syndromes out there that they don't even have a name for because there's so few people that have it. So, is microcephaly one of those things that can impact that small head? Yes. And what happens when we have a small head? Well, that kind of restricts our brain's ability to grow to its normal potential and capacity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she has a wide range of symptoms. Her eyes are messed up. Her digestive system is messed up. And so she is sick. She has been sick her whole life. She was born with it. So up until 2011, she went through multiple doctors and procedures to try and figure out what was wrong with her. And you as a nurse would know, and me as somebody who has been very ill my whole life, sometimes it takes a really long time to get a diagnosis, and you have to go through all kinds of medical tests and all kinds of different things in order to diagnose the patient. And so that's basically what was happening is she was going through all of those medical tests to try and figure out what was wrong. And it wasn't until 2011 that they figured out what was wrong. And by 2011, they had pretty much quit going to the doctor as much. So by the time by 2011, they're kind of backed off from going to the doctor. She's got a feeding tube, and she only goes to like the emergency room to actually get it changed. And she does it like every 6 months or something like that. So there's medical evidence showing that they backed way off from going to the doctor by 2011. So
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, I just from like my nurse brain has so many questions. um, you know, and I've been a nurse a long time. I've been a pediatric nurse a long time. I have been around child abusers a long time. I have been around, I believe, two moms who were Munchausen by proxy.
mm-hmm.
And they are a little, they're very good at you. And initially, you'll think, wow, they're really on top of their game. They're very medically savvy and they're advocating. And then there's this other side where you're like, okay, they like how much is too much and how
Mm-hmm.
involved is too involved, and again, I as a pediatric nurse who's been around chronically ill children with a variety of syndromes and who've had tracheostomies and been on ventilators and had many multiple medical problems. There's a, I would be able to tell, well, I would like to think I'd be able to tell with the little minimal exposure that I've had to, patients with parents like this, there's a line between, okay, they know a lot and they're savvy, and okay, now they know too much and it's getting a little weird. And over time, my nursing spidey sense has kind of developed. And sometimes I could just even tell a parent is off just because like my instinct is like something is not right here.
Yeah.
But it's, she had a G tube, and if she was getting fed through the tube, why didn't she have home care? And maybe they declined that, which happens. We've had families that have like, no, we don't need it. We can handle it. This is super simple. If you're, hopping around from doctor to doctor, hospital to hospital, it does make it hard to track some of these things. And it makes it hard to like pick up on any kind of abuse and neglect situations. Munchausen by proxy in and of itself is, it's so like the percentage, like the incidence of that is really small. Actually, I wrote it down. And there's actually so few cases here in the United States, like they can't even quantify it. They actually have to go, they use statistics from like Ireland and the United Kingdom and things like that nature. So it's really like 0.5 to 2.8 cases per 100,000 children.
Correct.
And there actually was a physician here in Florida who found 15 cases in the state of Florida in 1 year. And then so nationally, that in his mind or her mind, I can't remember, it equates to 262 cases in a year in the United States. So that was just one, scientific researcher looking at one state and then kind of extrapolating, well, based on this incidence in the population and the ratio, this is kind of what we might see here in the United States. But the incidence isn't like, it's not a lot. So it, in a sense, it would be hard to pick up on, especially in this, in this situation.
Yeah, but in Munchausen by proxy cases, isn't it correct that the child is usually made sick?
So they are, and again, there's going to be, as medicine, I always tell people there's always going to be like a one-off from like, we could say medically, statistically speaking, this is what we see, but I always make room for like, but there's always room for, a rare incidence or a rare case. So, typically they make them sick when they're not sick. But do I think it's possible that she was sick and she made her sicker? I believe.
Okay. Yeah. So, from everything I have seen and okay, so as I was telling you earlier, most of Gypsy's medical records, especially her time here in Missouri, have been released. And pretty much everybody has a copy of them that wants them. And I can get you a copy of them if you want them. But what is shown in the medical records is it's more of a malingering more than a Munchausen by proxy situation, because Gypsy's not being made sick. And if you really look at all of the documents, between the medical documents and the court documents, you'll see that a lot of what has been put out there in the media by Gypsy and her team is all false. And so you can't really even go by any of the documentaries or the show or even Gypsy's book, because she has even stated that there are many inaccuracies in the book. And so it's really hard, even with Gypsy herself, to distinguish what's true and what's not. And I believe that in that case, she definitely suffered from abuse by her mom in teaching her how to be like that. The lying, the manipulating, because ultimately at the end of the day, it was, I believe, in my opinion, I believe Gypsy's mother had a sick child, was a single mother, and got on that train of getting in with all of the um, foundations and charities and stuff like that, and kind of rolled with it, in my opinion, and took advantage of the system and taught her daughter how to take advantage of the system. And from early on, Gypsy was on stage singing. She was an ambassador for foundations, you know, as a role model for children, even when she was in her 20s. And these people didn't know that, you know,
Right.
sitting in a wheelchair, pretending to be a child that has mental deficiencies. And yeah, it was just one long con, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I feel you along those lines. And typically, they hit a certain age and you can't do it anymore because they can figure it out, right? So typically we see this in Munchausen by proxy, like in little ones, because they don't know any different or better. And you would think that as they age, they kind of figure it out. So how much did her Gypsy's chromosomal deletion and the microcephaly, like how much did that play into that? We're going to talk more about the Gypsy Rose Blanchard case when we come back right after this break.
Okay.
Still see the spray painted stop sign when I roll down 79. The drag marks behind that mini mart ain't faded after all this time. Every mad drive from Georgia to California's got a boy with a rebel heart. Stories in every small town scarlet by a good old boy taking it way too far. Somebody had to drink too much and crank Hank way too loud. Somebody had to always stand up to the guy with a tendency to run his mouth. The straight pipe Chevy had to run these streets like Bo and Luke in the General Lee. Yeah, somebody had to, and that somebody was me. There's still ruts on Ridge Hill Road and muddy cans we tossed out the window. String bikini on a limb by a swimming hole. That's a story that'll never be told. Cigarette butts and a busted bottle sitting by that old burn pile. This town was nothing without us, tearing it up every once in a while. Somebody had to drink too much and crank Hank way too loud. Somebody had to always stand up to the guy with a tendency to run his mouth. The straight pipe Chevy had to run these streets like Bo and Luke in the General Lee. Yeah, somebody had to, and that somebody was me. I guess somebody had to get a 4.0 full ride, whole life planned out on track. Somebody had to make a touchdown pass when state front page name written in black. But somebody had to drink too much and crank Hank way too loud. Somebody had to always stand up to the guy with a tendency to run his mouth. The straight pipe Chevy had to run these streets like Bo and Luke in the General Lee. Yeah, somebody had to, and that somebody was me. That somebody was me.
And we're back. And before the break, we were talking about how things unfolded in the Gypsy Rose Blanchard case, and Amber and I were talking about how it was kind of one long con, and I definitely don't disagree with that. And we know that sometimes you get kind of caught up in that, the support and the people and how it kind of makes you feel, and being in the limelight, and sometimes people just can't handle being out of it and they want to stay into it, and
Mm-hmm.
like you said, we kind of snowball into manipulation and things, and then before you know it, it's out of control. I mean, we know that when baby Jessica fell into the well back in the 80s, those of us who were around remember
Yeah.
that the gentleman who actually pulled her out of the well actually committed suicide because he, after all the news vans and all the media attention went away, like he just couldn't live without that spotlight, and he actually committed suicide. So
Oh,
I don't,
wow.
yeah, I don't disagree that, she kind of got caught up in all of that and
Mm-hmm.
kind of was like, okay, well, what do I need to do to keep this up? Because, I kind of like all this attention and all the things that I'm getting. And the byproduct of that is that Gypsy kind of got caught up in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate you bringing up the fact that, Nicholas Godejohn is on the spectrum as well. So people are going to ask, and one of the things that I've thought about is why did she, kill her? Why didn't she just try to get out? In my mind, as somebody who's a survivor of domestic violence, you don't know how to get out and you're just so afraid. Was that just kind of that was the only way she thought to get out? And I'm not condoning it in any way, shape, or form, but I almost, it's almost a shame that's what she felt that was her only way to get away, because I would have loved to have heard Dee Dee's side of the story and in how this whole situation kind of unfolded.
Yeah, so I would say that, in my opinion, after looking at all of the evidence and all of the court evidence, and I'll actually post it in here, a link to the court documents. There's a link in there to the Google Drive that anybody can access and go through all of the court documents that have been released so far. And we've got more coming out pretty soon. I actually just got an email today from Greene County, and they told me that it looks like my files are going to be coming in sooner than I thought.
Oh, that's exciting.
So, yeah, so there's going to be a huge document dump, and I am assuming that it's never been seen before because when I requested all of this information, I thought all of this information was out, but it turned out it wasn't. So, so I was just kind of asking for it to kind of preserve it for historical purposes because I like history. And so it was more about that for me. But what I'll say is that I believe from everything I have seen, Gypsy's mother, Dee Dee, was extremely sick. She had diabetes, she had gout, she had Parkinson's, if we're to believe what Gypsy says. She was extremely heavy, and you could tell the last video that was released, she was extremely tired, and she used that wheelchair, in my opinion, more as a walker than as a prop. It ended up being more like a walker for her. So she was extremely sick. And in my opinion, if Gypsy wanted to do something that was painless, like she has said, that she loved her mother and she wanted to do something that was painless, she could have overdosed her on insulin or something like that, instead of having her boyfriend stab her 17 times. And then also there's ample evidence to show that Gypsy was online chronically, just like she is now. back then and had communication with her dad and her stepmother and had communication with a lot of people and didn't ask for help except for Nicholas Godejohn, the guy who had autism, who was easily manipulated. And so I believe that Gypsy wanted to leave, and I'm not sure what her motivation was other than to just get away and live her own life. But if you look at all of the court documents, the life that she describes living with Nicholas is very twisted and evil. And it's not even coming from Nicholas, it's coming from Gypsy. And she says some really terrible, vile things in these videos that the police had to watch, and these posts, and all of this communication back and forth. I mean, extremely vile things. And it wasn't coming from Nicholas. It was all coming from her. So I don't know what was going on in the woman's head, but she was a woman. She wasn't a girl. She was 23 years old. And
Yeah, you got to wonder, what her life was like up to that point. And I'm not judging. I'm really truly trying to be objective and think, if I was somebody who kind of found out or realized at one point that maybe I'm not really as sick as I'm being made to believe, but she wasn't really exposed to, at least from the outside, exposed to a lot of normalcy in terms of like just getting up, going to school. Like she was with her mom all the time. So that relationship was clearly a little dysfunctional. So if she doesn't really have any semblance of what a normal relationship is, and then she's basically exposed to, like the Disney and all that kind of stuff and the Comic-Cons and things, but then she's online and she's seeing things. So I'm sure in her mind, her reality is very different than what all of us experience as we're just going about our day-to-day lives. Again, I'm not excusing her behavior, and I don't think it was right in any way, shape, or form. I just kind of wonder, from a psychological standpoint, I find this case fascinating because we never got to hear from Dee Dee, who clearly had some issues of her own, physically and psychologically. And then she has this child who's got, a chronic medical issue that kind of gets compounded. And then, so how much does, the chromosomal deletion and the microcephaly and everything else medically wrong with her, how does that all play into this? And, she never saw, doesn't really remember her parents much. And so like, she doesn't have examples of healthy relationships. So she was almost kind of set up to fail in a sense. So, am I surprised that this is kind of what she kind of turned into? Not necessarily, because we've seen people exposed to less and be worse. And, and there's a documentary on Charles Manson. I can't even watch it. Like I've gotten through like a couple episodes and I'm like, okay, I'm having nightmares. I have to stop.
the chaos one. I'm
I had to
reading
stop
the book.
watching it. It was freaking me out. I had to stop. But so we know that if you don't come from, do I know of people who came from, horrible child abuse situations and are completely fine and functional? Absolutely. So, it's out there. Like the possibility of normalcy is out there. But do I think she should have gone to prison? Absolutely. Do I think, again, I wasn't in the courtroom and didn't hear all the evidence. So I don't want to pass judgment and say that the punishment was, too harsh or too little, because again, if I'm not in the courtroom and hearing all the evidence, I find it hard to kind of really have a strong opinion in one direction or the other.
Well, she didn't go to trial. She got a plea deal. He went to trial.
Right.
What I will say is I encourage anybody who actually has questions like that about this whole case to go to that Google Drive, look at the pictures, read the court documents, read the police reports, and judge for yourself. Don't take the documentaries, don't take her book, don't take any of that into account. Just read the court documents and you will be shocked. You will be absolutely shocked. And so much to the point that in one of the videos that one of the detectives watches, Gypsy talks about, I think it's either a video or it's a text message, something. She talks to Nicholas about how at the age of 6, she had a surgery and she had a major seizure during that surgery, and she became like a paraplegic. And according to her, she pretended not to have feeling and things like that, even to her mom. She was pretending even to her mom, like she was playing up the symptoms and all of that stuff. So even in the court documents, she talks about how at the age of 6, she made a conscious decision to lie to her mother and everybody else because she was afraid that her mother wouldn't love her and that other people wouldn't love her. And so it's just interesting. I mean, that's just one of the things that came out, is like, okay, do we believe Gypsy that that's what she did? Because it came from her own words or, whatever. So this case is just extremely fascinating when you dig into it.
Yeah, I mean, clearly they were codependent on each other.
Yes.
And, so that's in and of itself, again, I wish she would have just walked away. I mean, she was an adult. She could have just walked away. Because I think I definitely would have liked to have heard Dee Dee's side, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then, they could have either said, hey, we can never be around each other again, or they could have worked it out. I do, I will full on admit that I do watch, her life out of prison. I watched, the TV shows, Gypsy Rose Blanchard. And do I agree with all the horrible, nasty things that people are saying about her on social media? Absolutely not, because I don't think that's right or fair to trash her when again, we don't know the whole story, especially if you haven't seen all the information that's out there and, made it, an educated decision. So I do think it's horrible, some of the things that people are saying. I do.
On that note, so I have a rebuttal to that because, unfortunately, I have become immersed in the Gypsyverse, basically, is what it is. And I don't pay near as much attention as most other people do. But there's a lot of really bad, toxic stuff going on in the Gypsyverse. And what I mean by that is that there's like a whole Discord that Gypsy and her best friend are involved in that run, and they dox creators and they dox subscribers. Literally, they're doxing people.
Is that the friend that's been on the show at the
yes, Bree?
Bree, yeah, that's her name. Yep. Yeah, I saw that one episode. I'm like, if you were really her friend, why are you enabling her?
Oh, it's really bad. The woman will be on a live for 16 hours straight, defending Gypsy constantly. And then she's got all of these side characters. There's this old woman named Dreamer Craft Corner that is absolutely ridiculous. She's a racist. She's a bigot. She's just an absolutely horrible human being. And there's just all of these side characters that are involved with Gypsy in this Discord and on TikTok that are actually making people's lives miserable. They've got pictures of people's homes. They've got the names of people's kids. All kinds of stuff. It's really bad. And I am extremely disappointed in the fact that So when I heard about Gypsy and I heard that she was in prison with my cousin and I initially started praying for her. That's how we initially, that's how I started with
Went into
Gypsy.
the situation, yeah.
Yes, I started praying for her. We were concerned about, was she being taken care of? Was she being abused again? Because people will go into the system and repeatedly get abused.
Right.
And so we were extremely concerned about that. So my cousin started asking questions, and we didn't really get much before she got out of prison. But like 2 days before she got out of prison, she said that she wanted to go see Taylor Swift. And it wasn't oh, I want to go see Taylor Swift. No, it was I want to go meet Taylor Swift. And in my mind, that was just repeating the same thing over and over.
Right.
She was meeting the cast of Harry Potter. She was meeting Miranda Lambert and all of these famous people. And she was up on stage singing. And now she just wants to continue that, but on a larger scale.
Yeah, I find it, this whole, like you said, this whole thing is fascinating. And, if it were me, and again, I'm kind of a well-adjusted, relatively well-adjusted adult, that, you didn't, you married this guy when you were in prison, you got out, you move in together, it's not what you thought it was going to be. Well, no shit. Like, you married him in prison and you're
Yeah,
living
right.
together and you've never lived with a man. So of course there's going to be bumps in the road and you changed your mind. Okay, fine. But then the back and forth the two of them have, and then she has the baby. Like, can you drive 3.5 hours to the hospital to sign this consent form? And like, what? First of all, block him. Let your lawyers deal with the shit and be done with it. Like, I just like you said, like, she wants to have like one toe in the pool for the pool of drama. Like, she never wants to like get herself out of it completely. And like the father and the stepmother are like, just don't engage. And she does it anyway. The father says, hey, Ken's back in your life, just use protection. And she gets knocked up right away. It's like, oh my God, like, give yourself a chance to just be out and be single and like you had like a life of neglect and abuse and trauma, and then you go to prison. Like, you're coming out, like, you should be like, not that you should be hiding, but just live your life. Do, like, I want to, like, who's her therapist? Like, I just want to ask, like, what did they hear she doing?
Well, and that's the thing. When she was in prison, she swears up and down that she couldn't get therapy because she was too healthy for therapy. But my cousin's in there. She's in a whole wing where it's called women's empowerment, and they focus on codependency and they focus on, being a better person. And Gypsy only took the one class that she was supposed to take, the victims impact class. And she basically spent her time causing chaos and watching TV while she was in prison, not bettering herself, and she was setting up her life to come out and be an influencer. There was no, Gypsy has never taken the time to figure out who Gypsy is. Right. And work on all of her issues. It's always about codependency. And just like with this baby, I mean, she was stealing baby clothes and naming babies when she was with Nicholas, and planning on getting pregnant. That was her plan A, was to get pregnant by Nicholas. And that's how she would escape her mother. And then when she was with Ryan, she was trying to get pregnant and she was buying baby clothes. And then as soon as she gets with Ken, she gets pregnant, because they said, they were with each other 12 times in 4 days, So,
I mean, and the sister, bless her, who's just graduated, became a nurse. Like, she initially thinks she's pregnant with Ryan, and the sister takes her to the drugstore to get Plan B. like so you knew where you could have gone. You could have bought condoms. You could have gone on birth control. Like that would have made the most sense, right? Like just I'm going to go on birth control because I'm going to be having sex and I need to focus on me and learning who I am without my mother, without the abuse and trauma, not in prison, like figure out who
Mhm.
you are and heal and then you could still live your life and get the tattoos and dye your hair, but figure out who you are and stand on your own 2 feet. And it does seem, you know, she's got a bit of her mother in her because, you know, as we kind of alluded to, like the mom got caught up in all the attention and the
Mhm.
foundations and the stuff. And then now it seems like Gypsy is just kind of wanting to continue that. Because if it were me, I'd want to step back from the limelight and get out of the way. And, you know, even, you know, she had that book signing and they had to have security all over the place because people were threatening her and things. And, you
They
know,
were threatening her. So I even watched, okay, so at that book signing, uh, okay, Sir Morbid X is a YouTuber and I follow him and he's funny. He's more of like a Howard Stern kind of shock jock type guy. He's really funny, you know. And so he set up that whole protest basically. And what it was just a couple of people outside. One woman went inside and bought a ticket and she wanted to actually, you know, get in line and talk to Gypsy or whatever. That was just one woman. But the rest of them, there were only like 3 or 4 of them that were actually outside and they just had signs saying justice for Dee Dee and it was live streamed. The whole thing was live streamed. So if anybody wants to go check it out, it's on Sir Morbid X. And that was just it was made to be something bigger than it was. And even that YouTuber that drove past her house,
yeah.
well, Gypsy wasn't home when that actually happened. And she wasn't calling out Gypsy, she was calling out Gypsy's stepmother. So they twist everything, you know, that's just how it's expected to be. But you know, she brings most of all of this stuff on herself. If she would just have gotten out of prison, gone and lived her life quietly, worked on herself,
Right.
people would have given her the benefit of the doubt. But because she has come out and tried to literally destroy lives online, um, you know, I can't stand behind her. I can't give her the benefit of the doubt anymore. And it's unfortunate, but I can't.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that, you know, the back and forth between her and Ryan, I thought was way too much. Like, and that's on him too. I mean, the two of them again have this codependent relationship, and he's like, "Oh, I still miss her and I still love her." I'm like, dude, get a grip. Like, you're a grown ass man. Get a grip. Go to work. It will be okay. Like,
But she's sending him pictures of her and her baby. And she was swearing online this whole time that he wasn't doing it. Or, I mean, that she wasn't doing it and that he was reaching out to her. But then all of this evidence comes out that she was actually reaching out to him and sending him pictures of her and her baby. I mean, that's so messed up.
I know it's
And
a lot of twisted things going on. I'm like, oh my god, that baby.
and the timeline, okay? So usually when you're pregnant, you get your first sonogram around your 4th month, usually, because that's when you can start telling, you know, if it's a boy or a girl. And I don't know how it is nowadays, but at least when I had my kids 20 years ago, that's how it was. You know, so by June 5th, Gypsy had already sent a picture of the sonogram to the prison, and I found out that she was pregnant. But in her book, she says that she found out she was pregnant on June 10th, which is her the day that her mother died. Well, actually her mother died June 9th, but She says June 10th. And so if she found out on June 10th, but I found out on June 5th that she had already had a sonogram, did she find out she was pregnant with a sonogram? Because that's just weird. So I'm thinking about the timeline. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you now that nowadays you can have, an ultrasound, earlier, especially if you miss a period. Maybe you're having some spotting, maybe there's some concerns. So they can do them earlier, but that's just to give you a guesstimate of how far along you are. And they're, do we see a sac? Do we see things progressing? Do they do an anatomy scan about 16 to 20 weeks based on, your pregnancy? Are you high risk or not? But yeah, I mean, that timeline was, I always, as a medical person, that's the thing that I always go to is the timeline. I do kind of feel as though she and Ken should have known better and should have used protection. Like, you just came out of prison, you're just reconnecting. Just buy some friggin' condoms at the local, drugstore, and like protect yourself. Like, you've been out of prison not even a year. Like, this was not the time for that to happen. Things will come in time, but just give yourself that chance for healing and to live your life and figure you out and not throw more drama into it. And you wouldn't have this Ryan last name drama with the baby.
Right.
It's like watching an episode of Teen Mom. Like, dear God.
Yeah, no, it's gotten so the first season was extremely boring and I completely checked out of it. And then the second season has gotten better, but it's only because they're actually starting to expose her manipulation more. And so it's like, oh, okay, I can see where you're going with that. But unfortunately they didn't do enough. So,
Yeah,
it is what it is.
the father and stepmother are well-intentioned individuals.
Ooh.
I just want to ask him, why does he always have his headphones on? Like, why? Can't you take them off for a couple of minutes?
So the stepmom is not well intentioned. She is just as active online, participating in the gossip and the toxicity online. The dad, he's just kind of go with the flow, out on the boat, kind of mentality. So yeah, unfortunately, the stepmother is immersed in all the drama as well.
Super interesting case.
It is.
So where do you want to see things go? Or where do you think they should, what direction do you think they should be heading?
So, I mean, ideally, she's not going to go back to prison unless she messes up within the next few days. I mean, because she gets off of parole, I think June 15th or something like that. So, ideally, what I would like to see is I would like to see her go off and live her life and be productive offline. Get involved in her community and, make a life for that baby that is out of the spotlight. I mean, she swore that she would never put her baby online, but the baby's online chronically now. So it's like, what the heck? You're doing exactly what you accused your mother of doing, exploiting you.
Yeah, I don't follow her on social media, but I would have to agree. Like, I wish that she would just kind of just take a step back out of social media, get offline, tell, Bree and, anybody else. And same thing with Ryan. Like, he should back off too and stay away. Like, just everybody go to your corners and live your quiet lives and just take care of that baby. Because, like, that's my big concern, especially as a pediatric nurse who's seen a lot of child abuse and neglect. And I've seen a lot of kids die and parents do horrible, horrible things to their children. And I would like Gypsy to take care of herself and find herself so that she can be the best mom that she can be for Aurora. And, so that Aurora doesn't, suffer and get caught in the crossfire. And Ken, something's not right. Like, I can't put my finger on it, but I just, like,
Well,
my
first,
spidey sense is tingling with him. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, I don't think he's like bad, but I don't think he's good. Like, there's something off.
well, first he wrote a prisoner, and then fell in love with her, and not just any ordinary prisoner, but a prisoner who murdered her mother and, manipulated somebody into doing it.
Yeah, him and Ryan.
And she looked like she was, 14 years old and a shaved head and all that stuff. So it's kind of weird, that him and Ryan would write her. So yes, he is definitely weird on that front. I believe that Ken is the only person who's not afraid of her in her life, honestly, because he's the only one that stands up to her. But I don't think that they love each other. I don't think they even like each other half the time. That's just apparent from the show. The way they interact, it's just not ideal at all.
Yeah, and I don't want to say he's on the spectrum, but he's close to it, in my opinion.
Oh, people just started asking that question recently. Is he?
Like, I'm like, he's got a job. Like, he's very, obviously, he's got a decent car. He drives. Like, he seems, like you said, like, he seems like he's kind of together. Like, he's not a hot mess.
Yeah, he's a foodie. He even attempted a beef Wellington, which is
God bless him.
hard thing.
He's what? But again, I'm like, I can't. And then you have Ryan, bless his little soul, who's just fallen apart from this, and another one who's just, he probably, the codependency is just the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you want to do a psychological study in codependency, just look at Ryan and Gypsy.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, it's textbook totally. And with Ken, though, I think he has some anger issues, because in the last episode or the episode before that, he was even yelling at his mom, and it's like, if you're going to yell at your mom on national TV, that's kind of weird, So, and he wasn't even like, he was just saying, I don't care about these people, and they're going to make up everything. But, the way he was speaking to his mom was not okay. So
Yeah.
when you're comfortable speaking to your mom like that on camera, what are you doing when the cameras are off?
Right. So do you think, as someone who's watched the documentary and you've watched the TV show and you've also got inside information, as someone who is from that area,
Mm-hmm.
and has seen, additional documents that a lot of people probably haven't seen, like, how accurate is the portrayal of her on the TV show versus what you think is her true personality?
So, I think you kind of really do see her true personality shine through, because if you listen to the things she says and watch the things she does, her true personality does shine through. But as far as like the overall media portrayal of Gypsy, it is absolutely inaccurate. It is so far inaccurate. It's sad, and it's kind, especially the fact that there is an autistic man in prison for life without parole. He deserves to be there, but at the same time, like you brought up Manson earlier, Manson manipulated people into murdering people. That's essentially what Gypsy did. she manipulated a vulnerable person to commit murder, and Manson manipulated vulnerable people to commit murder.
Yeah, I do have to wonder and think about, some of the things that, as as I'm watching the show and I'm going, I don't know if I would have done that. Like, just,
Mm-hmm.
you're out of prison. There's a lot of negativity about you in the press and on social media. And is this how we should be handling this? Like, I question, a lot of the things that she does, and some of those things being the Bree's response and reactions to things. And I'm defending. And listen, I get it. Like, I have a couple besties that I would probably die for, but I'm not sure that that's the way to go about doing it. And like you said, I just wish she would maybe get off of social media and just go live your life quietly and just exist and take care of you and your daughter. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like she needs to be in a relationship because she does not know how to take care of herself and she needs to be cared for.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why she married Ryan, and knowing that she would come out of prison and someone would take care of her, and then realize, okay, this isn't the right guy. We're not really jelly and living together, and I'm going to go with this guy, but I really want a baby, so I'll have a baby and then I can take care of the baby. But again, who's going to be taking care of her and the baby is still the question, and she needs to figure out how to take care of her dang self.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you even watch the show, so I watch it with other people because they stream it on TikTok on Mondays. Conspiracy. Go check out Conspiracy. She's the one that does that. And yeah, so what you notice is that she's got signs all over the house telling her what to do or telling Ken what to do. And it's like signs that are like really weird, like after 3 minutes burp or whatever. I can't remember everything, but it's just like a normal person wouldn't do that. Maybe they would make a checklist or something like that, but not put up signs all over the house to remind them about what to do with the baby. It's very odd. So
Yeah,
she does not know how to take care of herself, let alone her baby.
Yeah, I think that, that would be, what I would hope for, is that she learns how to focus to take care of that baby and do right by that baby, because you are in the public eye, and it won't take but that quick somebody makes a phone call, the Department of Child Services.
Oh,
and
they
now
have been. They have been, and that's the sad thing too, is that when it comes to Gypsy, people will call her parole officer or they'll call DCF, to the point now where if something really does happen, are they going to take it seriously?
Right.
And so I wish people would be more responsible, more adult when they're dealing with this situation, and try to see it from a logical standpoint. But unfortunately, emotions get way crazy when it comes to stuff like this.
Right. Well, Gypsy, if you're listening, we will, pray for you and your baby, and that you have good health and in your future endeavors. And thank you again, Amber, for coming on tonight and having a very interesting discussion about this case that I'm sure we're going to continue to be discussing for many months to come.
Oh, yes.
Thanks for coming on. And for the Dog Tag Diva, I'm here to remind you to greet each day with purpose, passion, and tenacity, and be kind to each other.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.